Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. So today we are going to continue with Graphical User Interface Part 2. The objectives of this topic are to understand and differentiate the various objects involved in the event handling for GUI components and implement application GUI event handling using NetBeans's Swing GUI Builder tool. In event-driven programming, code is executed upon activation of events, for example, a button click or mouse movement. Event and event source object. An event can be defined as a type of signal to the program that something has happened. The event object is generated by external user actions such as mouse movements, mouse button clicks, and keystrokes, or by the operating system such as a timer. The component on which an event is generated is called the source object. For example, the source object is a button for a button clicking action event. Event classes. Subclasses an event is an object of the event object class. You can refer to the Java API for the whole hierarchy. Here we can see that the event object is the AWT event, and we have action event, component event, and many others. For any mouse event, such as clicking, mouse entered, mouse exited, and keystrokes, those are under input event. An event object contains whatever properties are pertinent to the event. You can identify the source object of the event using the getSource instant method in the event object class. The subclasses of event object deal with special types of events such as button actions, window events, component events, mouse movements, and keystrokes. This slide shows an example on how to use the getSource instant method in the event object class. This code is available on your online learning, so you can try and run it to see what would be the output of it. In this code, we create a JFrame and added two buttons. The first button is called OK, the second button is called Cancel. And we are using grid layout. If you look at the public void action perform method, you can see that I have written over there system.out.println e.getSource. So when I run this code and I click on the OK button, it shows me a lot of information such as my alignment X, alignment Y, and it also tells me the text that I have for that button is OK, for example. If I click on Cancel, it will give me a similar result. If I click on the Cancel button, this is the output. So, based on the e.getSource, I would know that which button have I clicked. We are going to look an example code later on why this might be useful to know and to use. Selected user actions. There are many actions that you can do, and it relates to the source object and also the event object type that are being generated. For example, when you click a button, you are using a J button and it generates an action event. If say that you are typing something using your keyboard, that is the component as the source object, and the event generated is a key event. If you are using your mouse, you are pressing it, that is also under component as the source object, but the event that is generated is called MouseEvent. Java uses a delegation-based model for event handling. An external user action on a source object triggers an event object. An object interested in the event receives the event. This object is called a listener object. There are two things that are needed for an object to be a listener for an event on a source object. The listener object's class must implement the corresponding event listener interface and override the corresponding listener method. Java provides a listener interface for every type of GUI event. The listener interface is usually named XListener for XEvent. For example, the listener interface for ActionEvent is ActionListener. Each listener for ActionEvent should implement the ActionListener interface and override the listener's method named ActionPerform ActionEvent. If you do not override the method, it will give you an error. This relates back to interface and abstract methods. This slide shows the selected event handlers. For example, in MouseEvent, the listener interface is the mouse listener. The listener methods available are the mouse pressed, mouse released, mouse clicked, mouse exited, and mouse entered. All of these methods need to be overridden. For example, say that you only want to print out something when the mouse is pressed. You don't want to use the other methods, so you only have to override all the other methods but leave the implementation as blank, meaning that you only have the header of the methods without writing anything inside of the method. In the example here, the listener interface for MouseEvent is MouseListener. So, I need to write public class example2 extends jframe implements MouseListener. Now, I have to override all of the MouseListener's method. As we saw in the list in the previous slide, the methods available are mouse clicked, mouse pressed, mouse released, mouse entered, and mouse exited. As I only want the output to be shown if I click on the mouse, that's why in my mouse click method, I have system.out.println mouse click, while in the other methods, I leave it blank. The second thing that is needed for an object to be a listener for an event on a source object is the listener object must be registered by the source object. Registration methods are dependent on the event type. For example, for ActionEvent, the method is addActionListener. In general, the method is named addXListener for XEvent. In this example, JButtonOK has a mouse click event. JButtonOK is the source object. For the mouse click event, the method that is needed is addMouseListener. So we would write for the JButtonOK, we want to add the mouse listener. The code that is being highlighted shows this. OK.addMouseListener this. Another example here is having the source objects which are JButtonOK and JButtonCancel to have ActionEvent. The method that is used is addActionListener. So we add it to the button OK and also to the button Cancel. So we can write it as OK.addActionListener this and Cancel.addActionListener this. The listener method for the event ActionEvent is called the ActionPerform. So we have to write public void ActionPerform ActionEvent E. And we can write whatever we want it to do in that method. In the ActionPerform, you can see that I use e.getSource to do different things for the OK button and also the Cancel button. I use the e.getSource to do it. For a simple example, I have my if-else statement where I said if the getSource equal to OK, so if the user click on the OK button, then the getSource will become true. So it will print out OK button is pressed. If I click on the cancel button, then it will print out cancel button is pressed. So you can have one method that deals with whatever that you want to do for your components. Any source object that we have, it can have several events. For example, for the J button OK, I have add action listener and also add mouse listener. And the methods that I have are action perform and mouse click. So when the user click on the OK button, it will print out OK button is pressed, mouse click. For each event, the source object maintains a list of listeners and notifies all the registered listeners by invoking the handler on the listener object to respond to the event. Here is showing an example similar to the one that I showed you before. So it has the J button and it uses add action listener and calls the method action perform. On your online learning, I have posted this example called GUI5.java and NextBtn.java. In this example, I have the J frame and then I have J panels. I am using 3 panels in this one where I call it as panel top, panel bottom, and panel center. I also use different kinds of layout. Go through the codes to understand it better. When you run it, you should get this output as the image that is shown over here. So if you look at the action perform, if the user click on the next button, so that is under if e.getSource equal to b1, then it will call the next button class. In the next line, I wrote this.setVisible to false. That means that this J frame will not be visible. If I click on the exit button, so that is if e.getSource equal to b2, then it will exit. So I wrote it as system.exit0. Here are the screenshots that you should see when you run the code. So you will have Let's Learn GUI Part 2, and then when you click Next, you will get the other screenshot. Then the J frame of the event will not be visible because we have set it to false. If you click on the back button, it will go back to the event frame. So it becomes visible again. If you click on exit, then the whole thing will exit. This is part of the MouseEvent in NextBtn.java. Instead of doing the simple system.out.println, over here, I'm showing you that you can have a pop-up window. You can use JOptionPane.showMessageDialog. It will look something like this. So when I click on the button that says mouse clicked, then this message will appear. I can write similar thing for my keyboard event as well. So if the user types something in the text field, then it will call the key type and key press methods. So the message of keyboard type and keyboard press will appear. Right now, both methods are called at the same time. So the message are on top of each other. So if I click on OK, then behind it I can see the message that says keyboard pressed. Run the code and try it out so that it makes more sense what I'm explaining to you.